Okay. Welcome, everyone. We're going to let folks filter in here into the room, and we'll get started in just a moment or two. We're also going to get things going over on Facebook. So, hi, Facebook. I'm assuming we're live, but I'm waiting for a moment to get confirmation from the team. And once we're live over there, and the attendees lists slows down its growth a little bit, then we'll get started.
And we are live on Facebook, it looks like.
Glad to hear it. Exactly. Welcome, Norma, to your first Tea with Lee. Glad you could join us. Yeah, so I'll go ahead. We're, as I said, going to get started in a few minutes. Please do jump into the chat. When you're in there in Zoom, make sure that drop down is set to panelists and attendees. We want you all to be able to talk amongst yourselves and talk to everyone. For some reason, it defaults to just talking to us. And since we're talking to you and each other, that's less awesome than you being able to talk to each other. So please, if you go into the chat, make sure that drop down above the message box that says all panelists and attendees. And please do let us know where you're tuning in from. We always love to see that. Looks like we have folks tuning in from all over. Montreal and Seattle and Ontario and Mountain View and Brazil and Napa, California and New York and Poland, Cleveland, Ohio and Columbia, Maryland. Not Columbia, Maryland, Germany/Europe. Germany/Europe. Hello from Dallas. All right. Serbia, Alexandria, Virginia. Piscataway Native Lands. Piscataway Native Lands, I'm not familiar. Well, this is great, everyone. And we're going to get started here with Tea with Lee. And I've got some tea. Lee, do you have some tea?
I got some tea today.
What are you drinking?
We got some good tea down here at the center. As you can see, I'm at our studio. And man, we got a good tea stash here. So I'm drinking Trinity in a nice, cute little pot that's down here.
That pot.
And I have brought out the dragon cup yet again because, you know, it's just fun.
It is.
When you pour hot water in it, it's going to turn a different color. It's the cup of transformation. Right. So get ready. We got a tea show for you.
Got a tea show, dragon tea show. Excellent. Well, those of you over on Facebook, you're welcome to pop over to Zoom if you prefer. There will be a link in the comments. Before long, team's going to post a link and pin it to the comments. But you're also welcome to hang out on Facebook. And if you do, you're welcome to ask questions in Facebook just by typing them into the comments on Facebook. But if you're over here in Zoom and you want to ask questions, we're going to have a Q&A session soon. Please use the Q&A button here in Zoom. We're not going to be able to pull questions out of the chat. There's just too many places to manage it. So we will be getting started in just a minute with a little bit of a getting present ceremony once Lee has some hot dragon water in his hot dragon cup. And we're then going to go ahead and do some Q&A and hang out and talk about things and just enjoy tea being together as a community. So Zach just put some instructions, by the way, for those of you here in Zoom on how to ask your questions. And please do feel free to ask at any time. We'll be getting to those a little bit later, but you're welcome to put them in now if you already know what you want to ask. Link in the mail for Facebook doesn't work. So, Mr. Holden, I'm drinking what I call the trifecta.
Oh,
yeah,
sounds exciting.
It is exciting. I have a little pot as well, as I'm sure you know. And I put in a little bit of Trinity, a little bit of unblended brick, and a little bit of chung tai cake.
Whoa!
It's an amazing blend. I was lucky enough to get a little bit of chung tai cake, which is a long long since no longer available tea in our tea community here. I was just lucky enough to get a little bit. So put the three together. It's always been one of my favorite outcomes. Yeah, you get that.
Yeah, I forgot about that tea. That's such a good tea, and I haven't had it in such a long time.
Well, you got to come over.
I got to come over. Let's do a tongue tie session.
Delicious tea. So those of you who are out there and don't even know what we're talking about is Puerte, which is an aged and fermented tea from China. And it's a kind of the various ages, and there's various kinds of them, and it's a pretty complicated world of Puerte, but we're very lucky to have a great tea house called Hidden Peak Tea House here in Santa Cruz, and his sourcing is just terrific, and so everything I've ever had from there I've liked. And the energetics of it are quite profound. It's kind of a good Qi delivery system in a way, because the fermentation process changes the structure of the tea, so you end up with being able to really assimilate all the Qi from the tea into your energy system, as opposed to just kind of getting that caffeine high and then crashing. So we're pretty into it here in our Qi-centric community. And we're always drinking Puerte. Daphne is drinking Trinity from Hidden Peak. Hope you enjoy it. But I love all kinds of tea, green tea, black tea. This is a great season for green tea. It's starting to come in fresh. Some Dragon Wells are rolling in from China, some of those first picking ones. And I've always been a black tea fanatic, but I tend to crave that in the fall. How about you, Lee? What other kinds of tea do you drink? You've been experimenting a little bit with some of the South American tea, haven't you?
Oh yeah, the yerba mate. I mean, that is a good one. That kind of gives you a kick in the dantian just to jumpstart everything. That's always fun. I haven't drank that in quite some time. I've really been just sticking with the pu'er, but I think, seasons are changing, and I had a green tea. I do some herbal teas, some mushroom teas in the evening, things like that. But I do want to get into some matcha and the yerba mate, drinking it out of the gourd with that cool little straw. I mean, it's an acquired taste though, a little bit bitter, and but I do like the energy that it delivers.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's a nice kick in the dantian.
I heard that it doesn't have caffeine, but matine. So it's like caffeine. It's a little different in the system, and that's why it gives you a different kind of upward buzz. But it's a healthy drink, and it's fun to do.
Looks like Misty likes to double up matcha and yerba mate. That is no joke. Misty is not.
Hey.
Well, Mr. Holden, how's your tea supply? You feel like
I'm gonna pour a cup and let's all watch the dragon change colors.
Beautiful.
We'll have this intention of transformation.
Perfect.
Let's see how it does. Maybe I need more. Maybe I need hotter water.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, there it goes.
There it goes. It's coming.
Redder and redder.
Yeah, there it is.
It's just pretty cool.
You got to be patient for the transformation to happen. There it is. The red dragon has emerged. So that means it's time to start.
Let's do it.
Okay, everybody. Well, here's to your transformation. And let's have a intention setting on the transformation that energy or Qi can bring to us, and that we become the masters of our own transformation, like a cultivator of a gardener, that we can compost what is no longer useful, letting it go and taking the energy of nature and utilizing it. So in Taoist terms and Qigong terms, they often say that, negative energy, so-called negative energy, is not going to go away, but that we can utilize it like compost, something that's no longer useful. If we put that energy in the right place, we can grow an amazing garden. And so challenging experiences, negative energy, stress, things that we've gone through, adversity, can all be composted and used to cultivate kinder and more compassionate hearts. So let's bring our teacups to our hearts. And let's close our eyes and take a few deep breaths, feeling ourselves in the present moment. And let's just make a little circle, a little slow circle with your teacup, and bring in some loving kindness and compassion. Just stir it in. And sending out positive intentions for all of those going through challenging times. And bringing in some self-compassion for the challenges and adversities that we've gone through. We'll just take a deep breath and cheers. Here's to compassion and loving kindness.
Cheers. Here's to good tea.
Here's to good tea.
People are asking where they can get a dragon cup like that.
I know. Somebody gifted it to me, so I don't even know.
Nobody knows.
I'm gonna research, because that's the last of its kind here.
Yep.
The rest of
really?
it disappeared.
Oh, they wander off, do they? Those dragons.
They do. Yep.
Well, that was beautiful, Lee. Thank you. Folks, I think we're going to move on and start some Q&A. And so I'll just sort of reiterate what I said before, because there's a lot more people here now. If you would like to ask a question and you're in Zoom here with us, you do that with the Q&A button. There's a Q&A button somewhere. It's usually at the bottom, but if you're on another device, it might be slide around and find it. Use that Q&A button. And we'll be able to keep track that way and make sense of it all. But the people on Facebook get to put them in comments on the post. We have somebody over there who's pulling those out and going to be keeping track of them, and we'll have them come over and ask those live later. So if you're on Facebook, feel free to use comments. But if you're on Zoom, we really can't handle them coming into the chat. We have this whole other button here in this Zoom webinar format for you to put them in. So please do use that Q&A button because we have somebody paying attention to those. Oh, I see. Cool. Let's get started. I think we're going to have a few questions today about what to do after you take the vaccine, Lee, since people are doing that now, and it's come up a few times during class. And here's one from Elaine saying, Elaine took the Oxford vaccine yesterday, is feeling kind of weight in lumbar downwards. What should she do for prevention of circulatory problems?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. It's very relevant. So I think number one, healing sounds are really good to do, in the evenings. They help to just purge out side effects of any toxicity. And so sometimes what we do, like a vaccine, we give ourselves a little bit of that virus, and then we want to keep our energy circulating and discharge the pathogenic Qi that might have been brought in. So even though the body is getting stronger and acclimating to this new this new energy and this new antibody, we want to still do some purging and some clearing. So healing sounds, deep breathing exercises, even fanning the fire, where you do the breath from the belly like a bellows, where you, and this helps to circulate the energy. And basically we want to make this energy circulate a little quicker than it would just on its own, because your body will acclimate. It might take a few days, but if we do some healing sounds, some Qigong exercises, if you're up for it, and a little deep breathing, that can really help the acclimation and the integration of this new energy.
Excellent. Yeah, Sue is writing with knee questions. We do get a lot of knee questions, which is understandable. Do you have any suggestions to help a knee that semi-locks up when doing wide-legged stance while twisting, such as pulling down the heavens in 6 directions?
Yeah. We need some Nietzsche
Nietzsche
philosophy for the knees. All right, knees. Okay, so a lot of people have sensitive knees. And when we're doing Qigong, we're standing. knees are slightly bent. So we have to be careful with the knees, because your Qigong practice will strengthen the legs and the knees. It'll bring a lot of good circulation into those knee joints, into the tendons, ligaments. But what we want to do is not irritate any pre-existing conditions, whether it's arthritis, tendinitis, inflammation, whatever is going on in the knees. We want to make sure that they get stronger, they get good circulation, but not irritate them. So in general, when you're doing your Qigong practice, shift the weight back into your heels. Stand just a little taller. So when your weight is in the heels, the feet relax and the pressure is off the knees. Now, I think Kathy was saying that when she's in a wider stance, so if a wider stance with deeper knee bends hurts your knees, then modify it, take a little shorter stance, make sure weight is in the heels. And you might want to just practice with not as wide of stance at first until the knees get stronger and they feel better. Then you can start to gradually open things up. While you're sitting or other times, what I like to do or tell people is you just slap the knees with both hands. Let me see if I can show my knees. So as I'm sitting, I'm slapping the sides, maybe a little more on the front and a little more on the back. And then I might do some pressure points around the knees, 30 seconds to a minute, just circling all around the knee joints as a great little therapy for your own knees. Alternating ice and heat can be good for circulation improvement. So maybe 5 to 10 minutes on of one, and then 5 to 10 minutes on of the other. All right, so little knee therapy ideas.
That was a real knee slapper, Lee.
Yes, nice one.
Great. Got a question about, this is kind of a simple one, I think, from Leon. During flowing practice, where should I focus with my eyes? And is there a Qigong equivalent of drishti?
Ooh, that is a good question. Okay, so eyes, right? Eyes are powerful. Couple of different suggestions. You know, some people like to close their eyes while they're doing it and really feel the energy. Nothing wrong with that. When you open the eyes, I like to have a soft gaze with a little more panoramic focus. And so you're opening the peripheral vision, because when you open the peripheral vision, you bring your mind into the present moment. Shall we all try it? If you just gaze and then look out to the side, see how far you can look to the sides and take in the whole panorama of the room. And now if you're doing Qigong like this, you're open to the energy that's all around you, and your mind, it's a technique to bring your mind into the present moment. So whether you're moving and you're just keeping the eyes soft and expansive, that's a nice way to stay present. Some teachers suggest looking at the hands. That's a little bit more focused. And so you can look at the hands as a way to stay present as well. But what I find is it's a little bit harder or more distracting for a lot of people. So you could try a few different things. The thing you don't want to do is be off, like you're doing exercises and your eyes are not in sync with the movements. And it shows that the mind is actually thinking about something else and not engaged with the movement. In general, when you're doing a movement, nose to navel, like if I'm doing cloudy hands, my navel's moving, I'm moving from my center, and my nose is staying in alignment with it. Okay, so that's another suggestion.
Excellent. I think that's a great answer, by the way. I love what you're saying about keeping the peripheral open. It's such an interesting phenomenon, how your mind becomes much more engaged with the world around you and all the energy around you throughout the process of diving deeper into flows.
Yeah,
it's just, there's nothing like it.
No, really is not. Yeah, and then we're getting this alignment, body, breath, mind, all working together. So, you know, if you're doing movements, even if you're doing the mechanics right, but the mind is wandering, we're just looking out the window and thinking about our to-do list, it's not as engaged in our fullness of our attentiveness, our mindfulness. as well as our practice. And so that's why this panoramic vision I really like, because it takes in more of the energy of the space around you. And then from there, you can close your eyes and take in the panorama of your inner world, and then open the eyes and breathe in the energy from the external environment.
Here's an interesting question from Liz. Does working with the yin meridian also help the paired yang one? I need help with my small intestine, wondering if the heart class, the workshop we did on heart, can help.
Absolutely, that's a great point. So the yin organs, they receive the energy and then they deliver it often to the yang organ. So if you're working with small intestine, you can work with the heart as a way to bring that fire energy in balance. But also remember that when we're talking about, let's say, small intestine, we're talking about the energy of digestion. So even though it is the small intestine, part of that function is the spleen, which rules digestion. And so in Chinese medicine, each organ isn't just each organ. Each organ is also like concentric circles. It has areas of influence. So when we're talking about the spleen, for example, yes, it's the spleen, but it's also small intestine, but it's also, let's say, gallbladder and the way that the gallbladder helps to digest fats. It's also liver enzymes. And so these organ systems have ruling areas and areas of influence. And so if you're working on the small intestine, and especially in terms of digestion, we also want to work on the spleen. So spleen and heart would be a good combination to do for a small intestine issue.
Excellent. Here's an interesting one that I think you'll enjoy. This is from Jasper, do you know about the practice of walking backward? I've seen people do this in local parks or on the sidewalks, sometimes combining it with knocking on the door of life. Any relationship to Qigong, or just a peculiarly, I can't even say the word, peculiarly Chinese practice?
I'm sure it is a Qigong practice. And speaking of peculiar, there are very peculiar Chinese Qigong exercises that you'll see in the park. It's very fun to go to the parks in China or in big cities and just watch people doing different kinds of Qigong. I always am like, oh yeah. Well, walking backwards is a particular way in which you can start to help rewire the brain, since we're always linear in our focus and moving forward. Often martial arts practitioners will put attention in the back, walk backwards, and try to send their awareness in the space behind them. We talked about bringing mind into the present moments and ways in which we could do that with vision. So when you open peripheral vision, that's one way. But also the other way is to put attention in the space behind you. So if you put attention in the space behind you, all of a sudden we're in the present moment.
We're sneezing in the present moment.
Try to hit that mute button right before.
You got there.
Did I? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't want to shock everybody.
I know. You wake them up. Well, I think that's fascinating. Those martial arts practices, anything that sort of puts your mind somewhere other than this little narrow corridor in front of us.
Yes. It's good. And you could try it just in the middle of your day sometime. Why don't we just try it now? Just put your attention in the space behind you. And all of a sudden your mind becomes more circular rather than linear. And it opens up the right brain. We drop into the present moment. We're connected to more spaciousness or energy that's around us. And that's a nice reset. So you can open peripheral vision and also put attention into the space behind you. And all of a sudden, oh, I'm here. I'm back to the present moment instead of my mental daydreaming.
Perfect.
Good little technique, right?
Indeed. Bev is saying from South Africa, in one of the sessions you mentioned placing your tongue on your palate. This is something we have always been taught to do in our classes. Can you explain the significance of this? And should we do it in every movement or only specific ones?
Right, great question. Certain teachers will say different things about this. So there's 5-element tongue position. That's what's just interesting. I was explaining this to our Qigong teacher trainers yesterday. So for example, if you put your tongue way back into the soft palate of the mouth, way back, that's the water position. If you put the tip of the tongue down, that's the earth position. Tip of the tongue right behind the teeth, that's the metal position. Those are the most uncommon ones. The most common is lightly place it on the upper palate, right behind the ridges. So if you glide the tongue along the upper palate, along those ridges, where the ridges become smooth, right at that intersection, that's the fire point. And that's where we want to put it because it connects the energy of the Du meridian through the spine and the Ren meridian along the front of body. And these two channels are the Qi, or the circulation, the major rivers of yin and yang in the body. And the tongue position is like the circuit that connects the two. And so when we're moving energy, especially in those channels, like in the small heavenly circle or the microcosmic orbit, that's when you want to keep the tongue there. When you're bringing energy from mind, like this point through to the throat center, we want to keep the tongue there. But if we're stretching and we're doing neck and shoulder stretches, or we're doing something else, it's not essential to put it there. It's not wrong if you do, but it's not essential. Okay, so that's my position on the tongue position. Do it when you're moving energy in those channels, but don't worry about it. Don't have it occupy mental space when you're doing other Qigong exercises. Just relax and let that go. Make it very intentional to when you're putting energy through those circuits, and keep the tongue on that fire position when you do so.
Great. Moon Dust is asking, she says, break it to me gentle, but when doing meditation, I don't see the bright light or golden light. I just see dark.
Okay, I like it. Moon Dust. I think that could be a great Qigong, a name for a Qigong movement as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Just seeing dark. Okay, well, I mean, some of us aren't visual in terms of how we experience energy. So the main thing is to feel and sense energy. And so a stepping stone to that actualization of energy moving is visualization. So we visualize before we actualize. If you visualize something happening, often then the Qi will follow and the sensation appears. So if we're visualizing golden light moving in certain channels, all of a sudden the Qi moves there. Some of us don't need to do that. Some of us can just put our intention there and sense and feel energy moving in our body. So if that's you, then just skip that step of visualizing and go straight to the actualization and to the sensation. So there's visualization, there's sensation, and there's also auditory. So some people almost hear the movement of energy. And that just depends on what our inner sense is strongest for us. Is it auditory? Is it kinesthetic? Is it visual? And so we can work with what our strong suits are. And then you can also just fine tune some of those ones that are hard by trying to visualize. And if you can't visualize it inside yourself, then visualize something in nature, like sunlight sparkling on the surface of water, something that you've seen before, sunlight shining through trees. And then as you do that, just have that image come to your mind and then represent that into an area through your body.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm one who's not as visual, but very tactile when it comes to feeling the Qi, but visualizing has gotten easier over time. It didn't start easy for me to visualize those colors, the light, the thing, glowing in a certain organ or whatever. That started hard and got easier as time went on. It's a beautiful practice, actually, to see that unfold and to get comfortable with it. So if it starts challenging, that's okay. Everything does.
Yeah,
Everything
it really is a skill set to develop.
Yeah, and just let it take as long as it needs to. While we're on the topic of visualizing, Amber has a question. First, thanking us for the email this week about those living with disabilities and how even those in wheelchairs can practice Qigong, for example.
Yep.
Considering the subscription, but frustrated when she can't do the movements. What do you suggest in the moment when a specific movement's happening and she can't participate because she's in the wheelchair? Should she meditate or do a different movement she can do? What do you suggest as a way of coping?
All of those works. Meditating, just coming back to your breathing. So like, okay, they're doing that movement in class. I'm going to do wave breathing for myself. I'm going to do Dan Qian breathing. I'm going to do a movement that I know, like Buddha holds up the earth while they do that. So maybe have 2 or 3 go-to movements that feel really good to you, a breathing exercise, and you just substitute. So, oh, they're doing, swimming dragon, and that's a little too hard. I'm going to do Buddha holds up the earth, or I'm going to do a seated cloudy hands, and just bring in a flow or an exercise that you like and substitute it. That's a great way. And you can create a continuity, and then, the class changes. Now you can do the next exercise. Perfect. If even in the harder, wider leg stances, like swimming dragon, you can just still do seated and do sitting down. So you can either modify or just substitute with some exercises that you like, and you just keep your body moving, keep the chi circulating. That's a great practice.
Excellent. Brendan saying an osteopath recently diagnosed his back pain as a symptom of uneven leg length. Prescribed a heel lift, I'm sure you're familiar with those, to even out the pelvis, and recommended Qigong as a way to try to integrate the new position into the muscle memory. Do you have any movements to recommend in particular?
Well, I mean, Qigong for a healthy spine will be really good. We have that as a workshop. It's also in the subscription as a class that always lives in the subscription that you could come back to. And in general, Qigong is going to be helpful because we balance yin and yang. We do movements on the left, on the right. We're going to do movements along the spine. We're going to do hip movements. And all of a sudden, your body comes back into a place of balance and equilibrium. And tension on one side of the back releases and finds balance. And so all of your Qigong practices are going to be great. In particular, I'm going to say Qigong for a healthy spine. That's a workshop. Maybe Qigong for the low back as a workshop, things like that.
Great. While you're talking about balancing yin and yang, Kathy is saying, I'm new to Qigong. I'd like to learn more about yin and yang as it pertains to meridians, exercises, and so forth. Understand the flows are yin, and by which I think yin cultivating usually. And the outside of the arms are yang, the insides are yin, but I'm wondering about the rest of the body and keeping yin and yang in harmony and balance.
Yep, great. I think these are great questions. And also remember, yin turns to yang, yang turns to yin. And so when we're thinking about, hey, I want more energy, it's like getting a good night's sleep. You'll have more energy the next day. So the yin then turns to yang. And if you're active and doing all kinds of things that feel good during the day, you get tired at night and you rest really well. And yin and yang are really clearly delineated for when you need them. Children have really clear yin and yang. So they sleep really well, get a good 10 hours of sleep, and they have tons of energy during the day, right? So ideally we want that as well. And so flows are really yin cultivating, but they also fill up your tank with all this energy. And then all of a sudden you have a lot more energy to do all the things you need to. And we are a culture that we don't put emphasis on the yin, on our own internal energy cultivation, on slowing down, on going inward, on being quiet, on listening to ourselves, on being in nature, all these things that cultivate yin. We just are go, more yang, cup of coffee, monster drinks, Red Bulls, go, and then we crash. And then yin and yang really get out of balance. So your flows, yes, they're going to cultivate yin, but they're going to also then create a balance to modern life and giving us that deep energy reserves that we need. So yin, if we think of the Chinese medicine analogy of a lamp, the fire is the yang and the oil in the lamp is the yin. And so we put more oil in, then we have plenty to burn. If the oil gets depleted and we keep turning up that fire, all of a sudden, no more yin, no more oil. And this is called adrenal fatigue, or it can turn to chronic fatigue, or it can just feel like chronic low energy. And so by cultivating yin, going slow, we create that balance And that's why those flows are so important to overall energy levels, because we often are just go, go, go. And then the flows help to create that rebalance and that nurturing energy that allows us to keep pace with all the demands of our life in a really healthy way.
Excellent. Speaking of yang, there are a couple of questions. Actually, you know what? Let me take a moment here to address a couple of things, because all of a sudden there are questions showing up in the question box saying things like, so you're not going to answer my question?
Oh.
And meanwhile, there's people pestering the panelists and saying, can you see, I put multiple questions, but they're being skipped over. Here's how this works, folks. I just got to address this. We've managed to get through about 14 so far in about 25 minutes. There are so far 53 that we haven't gotten to. And by the time we're done, there will be more than 53 in the questions box. So we can't get to 100% of them. The way that we're doing this is we're sort of navigating through topical things as they come through. So this process is not linear. We just don't take the first one and the second one. We find the things that are flowing through the questions and then I'm trying to make sense of how to make sure that the questions are topical. So that's how this works. But if you don't get your questions answered here, there's a whole bunch of other ways you can get your questions answered. There are other Q&A calls. If you are a subscriber in the subscription, you can come to class and raise your hand. We always start with a Q&A session where you can actually talk to Lee directly during class, before class. And last thing is, anytime you want, you can write into support@holdenqigong.com. And if we get your question, it'll go to Lee if it's a question that the support team doesn't know how to answer. And it may take him a few days, but he will eventually get you a response. So I think it's important to let people know that, since there continue to be more questions showing up while I've been explaining that, and there's just no way we can possibly get through them all. So I am happy to, I should probably explain that in the beginning from now on, because when we started doing this at the beginning of COVID, we had a lot fewer questions. And so it was easier to get through them all. Same thing's happening during class. Now we get, 14, 15 people raising their hand, and we've got about 20 minutes and get through about 6 of them. So please do, at any time, feel free to write into support@holdenqigong.com. We'll do our best to make sure those questions get answered that way. And keep showing up to these and throwing your questions in the mix, and we'll get through as many of them as we can. All right. With that said, let's get back to it. Norma's asking about mitochondria damage. You know anything about that, Lee?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think, I'm not sure exactly what she's referring to, but it is a really important part. Oh, go ahead.
Slightly. Toxic body overload, mold illness, and parasite growth.
Yeah.
Causing it.
That usually affects, mold can really affect the mitochondria. Stress can too. These are the energy molecules within the cells that, have a way in which they're, the relationship between mitochondria and ATP and all these things. So what can we do? 2 things, let's say. 1, lower stress. Okay, so now when we put ourselves in toxic environments, like a house where there's lots of mold, that's stressful. It's best if you can resolve that problem so that you're not constantly fighting the mold issue with your immune system and using up a lot of your body's energy. But the other thing that we can do is bring our energy levels up. And how do we activate our own mitochondria? Breathing practices, breath work. And the Qigong is a whole series of breathing practices plus movements that, instead of saying mitochondria, ATP, we're talking about meridian lines, because we're not talking about just physiology, we're talking about energy anatomy. And if we're talking about energy anatomy, then we're talking about the influence of energy as it relates to our physiology, but as it relates to our emotions and our mind as well. And both East and West agree that stress, mental stress, what we believe, has a big influence on our cellular health. And so Qigong practice in general is going to be excellent for mitochondria, energy, detoxification, enhancing the immune system, all of those things, and specifically lower stress and do breathing practices. And so, you know, like our Qigong for better breathing, if you have a mitochondria issue, that would be a good first step. You know, the subscription would be a great way to strengthen those internal energy aspects of who we are.
Yeah, I think that's terrific. Norma has indicated that she has some overheating issues and can't do a whole lot. So even when she does the 20-minute routines. So what I'm hearing is that the breathing, really focusing on doing more breathing exercises. And what I would say is that if you're doing a longer class or you're doing something and you need to do only some of the warm-up phase and then sit down and during the rest of it, do those breathing exercises like he was recommending during the things he can't do for the person who's in the wheelchair, that would be a great idea, because then you're kind of saving energy, and then you can come back when we start the flows, get some of that flow action, which is really the special sauce here in the Qigong world. The other thing though, is I think healing sounds could be a helpful thing. Do you think that's a good suggestion?
Absolutely. Great suggestion. Because you could do healing sounds seated. It'll help with detoxification. With mold issues, often the vocalized healing sounds, specifically the lung sound, would be really helpful. Lung sound. So if you really wanted to target it, you do lung healing sounds, you know, for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then do breathing practices after that. And when you're doing the practice, be not in a room with the mold. So outside is ideal. Another place in the house where you feel like there's good ventilation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important aspect. If you're going to consciously do some intense breathing exercises, take the opportunity to go hide somewhere from the mold. That moldy house thing is a big deal for sure.
Yeah. A lot of people dealing with it here in Santa Cruz because of all the moisture from the ocean.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that all these houses in Santa Cruz were built as vacation houses 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
Really intended for constant habitation. Here's another set of questions. So you talked about more yang focused, and we've been talking about the yin and yang balance. And Gabrielle is asking about the iron shirt. If you wanted to get into more yang practices, would the iron shirt course be the place to do that? And
absolutely, that's a great course for that. The iron shirt is a little bit more advanced practice. It's got some roots in like Chinese martial arts and Shaolin Qigong practices to develop this really powerful body. It translates well to strong healing because the martial artists needed to develop these powerful bodies for, you know, confrontation. But what the side effect of these practices, super strong immune system, really strong bodies, strong energy system. So it's a little bit more yang in the internal aspect of it, because a lot of it is done in standing postures. You're holding these standing postures and doing breathing practices and certain visualizations and internal locking of muscles and sipping or packing energy into your organs. So it's a fantastic practice. It might not be the first thing you want to do in Qigong. You might want to do video class subscription, a few of the other programs, open up your body, get loose, and now pour a lot more energy into it with a practice like iron shirt. And yes, definitely it'll deliver a lot more yang energy than maybe some of the other practices. So it is a great tonic. It'll bring energy deeper into the body. So iron shirt, we go 3 iron shirt practices. Iron shirt 1, the internal organs and the body structure. Iron shirt 2, tendons, ligaments, joints. Iron shirt 3, bones, bone breathing and blood. So we do bones, bone marrow, and blood. And so you get a real full systemic infusion with that practice.
Excellent. Here's Jennifer asking, how do I get my breath in sync with the Qigong movements when I know it should be the in breath, but my body's doing an exhale, and vice versa, struggling to get it in sync properly? Do you have advice for
I know, right? So then you can, a couple of things, just pause and reset. So if you're going, oh man, my breath is off, but I don't, then just stop, continue a nice inhale, exhale, and then restart again. And now bring it in sync. Or just breathe a little longer. So if you're out of sync, I might just breathe. Oh, I'm supposed to be inhaling here, but I'm exhaling. I might continue my exhale longer. Now I'm inhaling and exhaling. So there might be a way in which you can just do a longer or slower breath, inhale or exhale until your movement lines up. And then really don't worry about it, because you are aware of your breathing and you're moving together. That's okay. So even if your breath is the opposite, as long as you're breathing slow and deep, you're staying calm and relaxed, you're moving with flow, it's just fine. So those three ideas to do it. We don't want to get in our heads about it. Start this repetitive thing. Am I doing it right? Now where I'm not in flow, now my body's not relaxing. And it's okay just to reset and then come back into the movement as the simplest way.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. It's sort of like music practice, really trying to get the music, to flow right. And if you don't pause when it's not, then you're kind of end up training yourself to maybe do it a little bit off. And so that idea of actually stopping and taking a moment and then rejoining makes a lot of sense, because then you're sort of, before long, your body goes, oh, okay, I got the message. And then you don't have to keep doing that. But you
right.
need to be kind to yourself and take it slow and be willing to stop, even though you're kind of in flow, just for a little while. I don't think it'll even take very long for most of us, because it just, it's like, oh, okay, got the message. You just gotta train your subconscious, really, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's it. It's true.
Here's an interesting one that actually has come up in a couple of contexts. Beata, I apologize, probably butchering the name. How to effectively stretch and relax the front thigh muscles. And I know a couple of other folks have asked, like, we do a lot of stuff on the hamstrings or the back of the legs, stretching wise, but not really the quadriceps in Qigong.
Right. It's true. I just taught in Dalian a nice quadricep sequence. It was pretty challenging, standing in the dancer's pose and then balancing as you come through. The quadriceps a little challenging, because either you got to stand on one leg and hold the foot, or you come down onto the floor. And so there's a nice floor sequence of bamboo in the wind that we come across and stretch the quadriceps. In general, the work of the legs is like establishing the roots of the tree. So the legs strong and the body flexible. And so bamboo in the wind idea, tree in the wind, seaweed in the ocean is really the goal of Qigong practice. And so we're developing that strength and that resiliency through the legs. But it's unlike yoga, there's not such a focus or an emphasis on leg flexibility. Certain styles of Qigong, yes, like Daoyin. And that's what we're kind of exploring in these 4 weekends that we're doing. A lot more stretching on the legs. And when you use them in combination, it's a really nice balance. So that's to say, hey, if you want to stretch your quadriceps, you get on the floor, stretch. What I do is like the 3 lines, the inside, the backs, and the fronts. And so that might be something we even do in Qigong class today, later this afternoon, because we haven't done that in a while. We'll get on the floor and do the bamboo in the wind. So if you're in the subscription, look for that quadricep 3 leg line release and stretch in today's class.
Excellent. Today's class, Qi Barista in effect.
Yep. Remind me that we're having what we're putting in our cappuccino today.
Yeah, that's right. Here's one that I think almost anybody here basically knows somebody who's dealt with similar issues. Ruthie's asking for advice on what Dad can do as he receives radiation for localized prostate cancer. Already doing healing meditations with him remotely, but what can he do while going through the cancer treatments?
Oh, so for cancer, the healing sounds are really the first recommendation. and vocalized healing sounds. So when you're making the vocalized sounds, it creates a vibration in the body that does a couple of things. Sound healing is a great way to break up stagnations, and often cancer is seen as a stagnation of energy, especially like a tumor. Healing sounds in general activate the body's healing energy, as well as just overall, nice Qigong flows. And so, combination of maybe 5-element flow in the morning plus healing sounds at night is a really good, in general, cancer treatment to activate the body's natural healing power.
Yeah.
That also said, spending time in nature, like forest bathing and doing Qigong practice in and around really nice, healthy trees is also a recommendation in cancer treatments.
Excellent. David's asking about 20-year-old daughter keeps getting recurring tonsillitis. This one caught my attention because it's something that happened to me a lot when I was younger. She's at college as a singer, so this is not good. Doctor keeps giving her antibiotics, which is not ideal long-term. Any suggestions for Qigong exercises or herbs?
Yeah, herbs, great. I would see an acupuncturist, get your energy balance with some points and herbs. That's a great thing. I'm thinking of a formula called Chuan Xin Lian. Did you all get that? How was my Chinese? Should I write that in the chat?
It's better than mine. I'll take care of it.
Okay, Chuan Xin Lian is great for infection. It is the Chinese formula, the first one that we think of for infection. It's a great one. Doing some prevention, like eating really healthy, low sugar, low dairy, really clean eating, plus some herbs can be very good. Then just be doing your Qigong practice so that your immune system gets stronger. Sometimes while we're in school, we get a lot of stress, and the pressures of school start to pile up, and how we process that stress can be hard for certain people, and then their immune function gets down. Then you get a dose of antibiotics. Now you have the stress plus the antibiotics that compromises the immune system, and then it's easier to get reoccurring infections. So let's start to build the energy system. We just did Qigong for a healthy immune system. That workshop would be great for her if she wants to kind of review that and do some of the exercises that we show in that. So breath work, low stress, Qigong practice, and then some targeted immune work.
Excellent. Yeah, for me, the trick was to stop with the antibiotics, and it's challenging, finding these other things to do to kind of keep it from recurring, and then building up the energy in your immune system over time. In the meantime, if it's super acute, you just kind of need to do what you need to do at the time. But getting off the antibiotics gradually was very helpful. Makes a big difference. Is Puerte a green tea? My dad is on warfarin blood thinners, and they recommend no green tea, but black tea is okay. It's a great question. Basically, Puerte is a slightly different path from green tea, in that all tea that's really from the tea plant, Camellia sinensis, starts out as green tea, and then it becomes it either stays green because they do something to stop it from oxidating, like flash steam it or pan fry it in a wok really quickly and keep it green, or it'll start to oxidate naturally and become black tea over time. Or oolong is this area in between green and black tea where there's all sorts of different oxidation levels and techniques to bring out certain flavors and caramelize certain sugars in the leaf and stuff like that to create this. It's really a high art of creating oolong teas. Puerte is a whole different direction. It is post-fermented. So what that means is that there's this microbial process that breaks down all of the compounds in the cell structures of the tea, like any fermentation process, making yogurt or sauerkraut or something like that. So pu'er tea is really more of a fermented food, you might say. And it has a lot of the benefits of fermented stuff. I would assume that if black tea is okay, that pu'er would be okay too. The reason being, but not raw young pu'er. Look for ripened or cooked. The other word for that is shou. That's the Chinese word, shou. That's kind of the key word to look for a thoroughly fermented pu'er tea. Otherwise, if it's thoroughly fermented from raw, that takes 20 to 30 years of careful tending, and so those are ridiculously expensive. But the brand new raw teas, people didn't really used to drink those much because they're very intense, and it's a lot more like drinking a green tea but turned up to 11. So what you want is the shou pu'er if you're going to drink the pu'er tea and you can't drink green tea. So it's a very interesting question. We often get that question. Is pu'er tea a green tea? No, but it's also not a black tea. It's just kind of its own thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's its own magic, special kind of magic. It's a really well-balanced tea. So, if green teas and whatnot are too stimulating and coffee's too stimulating, pu'er is a really good choice to go through it, as Ben was explaining, especially the cooked, easy to digest and assimilate pu'ers.
Okay, cool. Just typing that in the chat because people were asking. Mary Teresa. Hey, Mary Teresa. I haven't seen you in a long time, but I've been seeing you around lately in class. That's super cool. Welcome back. I have recently had an increase in the tinnitus, depending on whom you ask, or what part of the country that she's experienced the last 10 years. Curious about your insights and what you would recommend to counteract the ringing and dissipate the intensity in the ears.
Okay, so in Chinese medicine, when we have a diagnosis like tinnitus, we look at where it's located. And so the ears are ruled by the water element and the kidney. So first thing to think about, let's work on tonifying, strengthening, making sure that qi is circulating well through the kidneys and the meridians. We can also look on more meridian theory as opposed to 5-element theory. 5-element theory, kidneys rule the ears. But meridians, there's energy going around the ears like this, and in front of the ears, there's all these pressure points. So we might stimulate the points at the back of the ears, right at the front of the ears, doing exercises like this, holding the ears and knocking the back of the head. There'll be some ear Qigong exercises to do very specifically. At the end of your Qigong practice, when you have all this nice healing energy in the hands, just hold a few inches away from the ears and send that healing energy through the ear canals. So that's how we would address those kinds of things. Now, whether it's, the source of the issue was listening to loud music as a kid, being in concerts or backstage at concerts a lot, or being a musician or a construction worker, or is the source hormonal? If it's hormonal, again, we're going to look at the kidneys a little bit more. If it's like an injury where it's just damage from too much loud noise, then we would do the pressure points a little bit more. And so that's how we would think about it in Chinese medicine.
Great. Well, I've heard a rumor that there's some questions piling up over in Facebook, and Zach is going to pop in here and bring those over. And hi, Zach. Welcome.
A ton of really good questions coming from Facebook. Are you ready for them, Lee?
I'm ready.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
Boris is asking, do you have any recommendations on how to use Qigong while driving to and from work in a car?
Yeah, keep those hands on the steering wheel, no floating and cloudy hands. Here's what you do. You can do healing sounds. You're just driving, go through all the healing sounds. That's a nice way to just keep the organs tuned up and energized as you're driving. Breathing practices like trying kidney breathing, dantian breathing, qi belt breathing, wave breathing are really good ways to integrate while in the car. Softening and relaxing muscles, just, body scanning, like notice, am I gripping the steering wheel too tight? So soften and relax muscles, taking deep breaths while you're staying relaxed but engaged, bringing mind into the present moment. So like just paying attention to everything on the road, being engaged maybe with the sounds of the music, and staying mindful of the practice. These are all things that can be done while driving.
Great. And Angela's curious about how do you stop the rushing feeling inside your body and create more peace in the body and in the mind as well? I've been doing a Qigong evening routine for some time, but keep feeling rushed all the time.
I think this is a great question because we're so outside of ourselves, right? In our modern life, we're just in the future. Hey, at some point I'll be able to relax. But if we don't learn how to relax into the moment, the future moments again get postponed, and then we just actually don't know how to do it in and through our own nervous system. And relaxation is a training. And in fact, we might need to train fairly diligently to learn how to relax. So 2 things: slow down. If you want to be out of a rush, usually when we're rushing, we're going fast. And that makes breathing fast. That makes the mind race. And so slow your breathing down and slow your body down. Slow down the cadence of how you're talking even. And so by slowing down, all of a sudden we get the, everything's okay. I don't have to get through the moment and get to the things, we kind of often are like this inside of our own selves, getting that frantic energy. So slow down, and then diligent practice of slow flow. So when you're doing any of the movements, go extra slow and maybe spend extra time doing flows to get comfortable in the slowness and in the entering of the moment. Mindfulness practice, so just a meditation where you're just engaged with what's right here, right now. So you can just notice everything. I feel the chair at my back. I feel my breath coming in and out through my lungs. I notice the colors of the room. I notice the ambient noise, and just stay engaged with where you are right here now. A couple of thoughts and a couple of ways to do that.
Wonderful. And Ivan's curious, can Qigong be used to reverse autoimmunity with an overactive immune system?
Overactive immune system, yes. Use your Qigong practice because your Qigong practice ignites the intelligence in your body, the healing intelligence, and often stress disrupts it. And so when we have too much stress, all of a sudden the immune system gets on alert and becomes overly active and starts attacking the healthy parts of the body, whether it's joints or digestive organs or whatnot. So when we lower stress, reignite the intelligent system within us, the immune system starts to get more balanced or becomes regulated. So keep up with your Qigong practice. Low stress, bring more energy circulation into the body. And for immune system, do more work with the lungs, because that's the first part of the immune system. So breathing exercises, slow, relaxed, deep breathing is really good for that.
Wonderful. And Michelle is curious, can you help out with shoulder, neck pain, and also limited movement? I have an MRI on Friday, and I'm looking for any help that I can get.
Also, with the immune system, the previous question, try the Qigong for a better immune system or a healthy immune system. That is on the website in previous workshops. Now, neck and shoulders, we all carry a lot of tension here. So what you want to do is do the Qigong exercises for neck and shoulders, nice and gentle. That means if we're doing a stretch, you're not going to do it super hard. I want you to relax into those stretches and just soften and try to get some movement of energy through those muscles and increase range of motion through those joints in a gentle step-by-step way that then releases tension and improves mobility. So we have some programs. We have Qigong for upper back and neck. We have Qigong for healthy joints. Do we have a previous workshops, Ben, on upper back and neck? I forget if we do. We have a lot of workshops now. We have a Qigong for healthy spine workshop. That would be good.
Cover that as far as our previous workshops.
Yeah. And so in the video class subscription, every single class, just about, we do some work on the upper back, neck, and shoulders. And so it's about moving energy there without irritating pre-existing conditions. And so have that in mind. That's why we do it gently, slowly. And that's why people get so many benefits, is because then when you release the stress held in that area, the body starts to naturally improve its circulation and then heal on its own accord.
Perfect. And William has a question. In my specific case where I have hypochondria that makes things up in my mind which aren't true, like maybe something is wrong with my body, how can I use Qigong to combat this?
Okay, again, come back to the moment. Often the mind will start to race in a direction. And we're hardwired already for thinking about and looking for negative, the things that are wrong, the problems within us, the problems in life. Now, when your mind starts to go in a direction of a worry or a problem, I want you to just play a little mental game, do a little mental Tai Chi. Just say, okay, I recognize that thought. What is the opposite of that thought? Well, let's see if we can go in that direction. Now I'm going to visualize and think about how healthy I am. Think about all the things that your body's already doing so well. Think about how healthy you're going to be tomorrow and the next day. And that, can you visualize yourself next week healthier than you are today? And next year, even healthier. And so mentally just focus on what you want within your body and within your life. It's going to be a little bit of a mental game because my thoughts bubble up to the surface automatically. And most of those thoughts, I forget the statistics, but it's in the 80-ish%. Most of our thoughts tend towards the negative. But because you can consciously control your thoughts, now you come in and say, oh, interesting. I'm going to observe that negative thought, that worry. I'm going to do a little mental Qigong and think about the opposite. I'm going to ruminate. I'm going to daydream. I'm going to put attention on the positive. So do that. Every time you notice your mind going into that, change it over there. That's like mental gardening. You're redesigning your mind in the way you want it to go.
Perfect. And Kathleen is wondering, what are some specific practices or exercises that can be used for high blood pressure?
Okay, well, we do have a great Qigong program, Qigong for high blood pressure. Look for that on the website. Any movements that go downward, pulling down the heavens is good. Centering is good. So downward flows are good. In general, blood pressure is often related to the liver because energetically, there's this inner branch of the liver meridian that comes right to the top of the head. So when we can calm down the liver, it's good for blood pressure. What are the emotions related to liver? Stress, frustration, agitation, anger. And so we're going to want to minimize or transform some of those emotions as well. Work with those emotional energies, do downward flows in a very slow way, work on the liver meridian. In that program, we do some pressure points, and I give you a whole sequence of movements for blood pressure.
Perfect. And Beth is wondering, I remember from a class you had a trick for clearing sinuses. I'm wondering if there's a specific one for plugged ears.
Okay, so the points back here are good for the ears, as the points here are good for the sinuses. And then for the ears, work with the kidneys. If it's plugged ears because of sinus congestion, which can be the case, then we want to work more on the lungs. Tapping on the lung points, doing some lung exercises that really help with opening up and transforming dampness or phlegm in the sinuses and the lungs so that it doesn't get pushed into those ear canals or into that whole ear, nose, throat area.
And Corrine is curious, do you have some advice for impatience? I want to get done with everything before I even start.
Zach, say again, do you have advice for what?
Impatience.
For patients?
Yes.
Okay, for patients. I thought like a patient in the hospital. Okay, so for patients, gosh, we all need that, right? Patience is said to be related to the emotion and the energy of the heart. So out of balance heart energy is being in a hurry, rushing, hastiness, impatience. And we start to feel when we're rushing around and we're impatient, it starts to get tight here. And so slow breathing, just in the moment. And when you notice you're just getting ahead of yourself or rushing around or getting any kind of emotional anxiety, slow the breath down just as a first step. Just inhale. You can even still do the same pace and do all your activities, but consciously slow your breathing down. And that agitation and hurriness gets cleared out with slow breathing. Do heart exercises. So specifically flows for the heart, like cloudy hands or grasping the bird's tail. These are all great ways to clear agitation in and around the heart. Slow flows are really good for people that are just naturally impatient. Those would be the first steps I would recommend.
Next, and Kathleen is curious, I'm wondering about using Qi massage on COVID patients. I'm thinking it would help to strengthen the lungs. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do, the knocking, deep breathing, healing sounds for COVID patients, for sure. All of that is really good. Healing sounds, and especially targeted towards the lungs, and lung pressure points are great.
And John is curious, what are the best Qigong routines for side effects to medications in general, apart from the healing sounds? I often feel really slow and sluggish after taking my medications.
I would say purging exercises like clearing, shaking, the one that we do sometimes, we come up onto the toes and the clearing where we're turning from the hips and the waist. Those are all really good exercises. Maybe a little fire breathing, just to, again, ignite the body's energy when something invasive is happening and that throws off our inner equilibrium.
And Justo is curious, when you place your hands in the dantian, is there a different position that you do based on your gender?
Some Qigong teachers say yes. I say don't worry about it. If your right hand feels more comfortable on the dantian and the left hand on top, do that. And for example, if everybody wanted to try, if you went like this and interlocked the webbing of your thumbs and put it on your lower abdomen, what one feels most comfortable? One feels a little weird. Like for me, when I put my right hand on the outside, feels a little less comfortable than when I put my left hand. And so try that for yourself. Do the one that's most natural for you. And we're all in, our energetic constitution is all different individually. So figure that out instead of just saying, men do this, women do that.
Wonderful. And Anna is curious, I'm very sensitive to the wind, especially if it's cold. Only 5 minutes in with the cold wind on my face can ache for days. And I found on the internet that wind is very bad for our chi. Is that true? And if so, why?
Okay, so in the environment, the wind is seen as the nature's chi. And often the nature's chi is going to be stronger than our energy. So if our energy is depleted, we have low energy, being in the wind can be really hard on our system. So, get some really good clothing like Vortex, some jackets and things like that, so that even though you're outside, you're still like you're inside. And then do exercises that build and strengthen your energy system. I had a few patients that were really sensitive to wind when I was doing a lot more acupuncture. And we did, tonification acupuncture treatments, tonification Qigong practices, built the energy up so that it wasn't an issue as much. This person, for example, even if they were inside and the air conditioning blew on their neck, they could be sick for days. So it is something to watch out for. Chinese medicine does say, hey, be careful of the wind because it's stronger than your energy. So windy and cold especially can create some problems in certain constitutions. Other people, strong, lots of yang qi, not as detrimental. So we now have a lot of really good clothing, so that even though we're outside, it's almost like we're inside. So get some of that, invest in some of those kinds of things so that your body's stronger, or that you have an extra layer of strength.
Wonderful. And Daisy is curious. I'm interested in knowing what the equivalent of radiant circuits in energy medicine would be.
Radiant circuits.
Yes.
Okay, I would just guess on that, but it's just really well balanced, strong energy. It creates this, energy is sometimes seen as light. The light is a form of energy. So when your body has a lot of energy, we exude a particular kind of light or radiance, and it could come through in our personalities. It can come through in our emotions and our demeanor, and it definitely moves through our meridians.
And Jacqueline has another autoimmune question. Can you tell me what is out of balance with autoimmune diseases, in particular lupus?
It's a complex set of circumstances because immune system is skin, it's lungs, it's digestive organs, it's stomach acid, it's earwax, it's mucus. All these things represent immune function. So it's the barrier between your body and the pathogenic Qi, whether it's bacteria or virus. Even in Chinese medicine, they say some people, their emotional energy, emotional stress is a form of immunity, of this protective energy. So we want to strengthen our protective energy. And then it's a complex set of organ systems that are involved, depending on your constitution. So it might manifest in your body as a particular thing, lupus or rheumatoid or this, that, or frequent colds. And it might originate for one person as environmental stress, like mold. It might originate for somebody else as a toxic relationship that wears and tears on their energy system. And the stress of that makes their immune system go down. And so we want to look for what is the root cause of it and address that. And then what is the symptoms and also address that. So in general, let's lower stress. In general, let's strengthen the lungs. That's the first thing we're going to look at for the immune system. Do breathing exercises. Slow, conscious breathing can be really great for the immune system with stress management techniques, both in life and in skilled practice like Qigong.
And Petra is wondering, are there any special movements for Parkinson's disease?
Slow flows are good for Parkinson's. What we found when we did some Parkinson's research when I was in Chinese medicine school, and slow flows and deep relaxing meditation seem to really help the Parkinson's patient. So this could be 5-element flows. We have a practice and a program called mindfulness through movement. That's a great one. Slow, relaxed meditation, calming the mind. One of the workshops we did, Qigong for a healthy nervous system. Qigong for longevity and the nervous system, that would be a good workshop to do.
And Dave is wondering if there's anything you can recommend for menopausal internal wind conditions.
For menopause, this is seen as yin deficiency. So tonify the yin energy. What is yin energy? Slow movements. Again, if we slow down, the yin energy will build up so that the heat isn't exacerbated. So when yin and yang, yin goes down, it looks like there's too much yang and we get hot flashes. We get some emotional flare-ups. It's hard to sleep. These are all signs that there's too much yang, but really there's not too much yang, there's too little yin. So yes, do some things that clear yang, like healing sounds. Make sure that you're not getting agitated in daily life. That can be helpful. But then build up this yin energy, slow flowing movements, meditation, being out in nature, especially being out around large bodies of water like the ocean, like rivers, like lakes. Those can also help to tonify yin.
Wonderful. And that wraps up all of our questions on Facebook.
Excellent. Thanks, Zach.
My pleasure.
All right. So here's what we're going to do now, everybody. We're going to take maybe one or two. We kind of didn't leave a lot of time, so my bad. Sorry about that. But we're going to take one or two people up here on stage to actually ask their question directly. And the way we do that is by having them raise their hands here in Zoom. And because we don't know if some of the people with their hands up wandered off, I'm lowering all the hands and we'll see who shows up with their hands up. So there you have it. So please do, if you want to, jump on and go ahead and raise your hand here in Zoom. There's instructions in the chat for how to do that. But as I said, we've only left a couple of minutes here, so this will be pretty brief. The reason I lower all the hands is because sometimes people wander off after leaving their hands up. And so we have to make sure that you're actually there before we call on you. And so people have had their hands up since the very beginning. Just gotta get a fresh start there. So it looks like of the people who were here before, we got David Allen, who also raised their hand again. So come on back in, David Allen, and we'll get you up here. Excellent. Prompting you to press some magic buttons there, David.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, David.
Hello. Good evening, Lee. I hope you're well.
Thank you.
I've got it's a question. It's kind of related to Qigong, but I've got two types of pure tea that you've recommended. I know you drink pure tea. Lazy dragon and skinny dragon. Now the question is, do you become a lazy dragon? Because you do become a skinny dragon. Oh, that's it. A bad dragon and lazy dragon. Bad dragon and lazy dragon. I'm thinking, do you become a lazy dragon because you're a bad dragon, or the other way around? I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. Let's hope not. Maybe when you drink that, it clears out the bad and lazy dragon out of the system.
Yeah,
And,
maybe so.
You said skinny dragon because Puerte actually was called the tea of weight loss.
Yeah.
It stimulates metabolism. So there you have it. It's good for digestion and metabolism, especially when you're doing it with your Qigong practice. That's a good way to go. So don't become a lazy dragon just because you drink Puerte.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Nice
Just wanted to clear that up.
Don't go into the rest of the week thinking you're going to be a bad, lazy dragon. That's not good.
Yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for. The dangers of Puerte, everybody. Truth is out.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Paula. Did I get locked up? Nope, you're still moving your face. Good. All right. So Paula is next. And here we go. Or not. There we go. I knew you could do it.
Hey.
Hey, Paula.
Hey, I'm here.
You sure are.
So this is a question about thyroid nodules. I'm interested in what would cause those energetically and what would be helpful. Specifically, I'm wondering if microcosmic orbit would be helpful.
Yeah, I think microcosmic orbit would be really helpful, bringing energy down through that channel, especially the movement of energy down through the Ren meridian. So exercises like the waterfall would be really good. Even thyroid, part of the endocrine system. So we're going to think water element and kidneys. So the fountain, it might be nice to bring healing energy up right through that area and then pour that water energy down right through that. So you're washing it with healing energy. Kidney healing sounds are good. And look up acupressure point kidney 6 is a good for the thyroid and the throat.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause could be, so many things, hormonal issues, probably an underlying cause. Stress could be, long-term chronic stress in some capacity. We might even think, in our detective work, how about speaking what's in our hearts and our emotions? How's that? Those are the kinds of things that we'd start to do some detective work with.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Paula's going to get to sleuthing.
Yeah.
That sounds like good advice, Lee. Thank you for that. And with that, we've only got a couple of minutes left. So I think what we should do is Lee, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and just sort of lead us into taking that feeling with us for the rest of our day.
Yeah, that's right. I like it. You're taking one from my playbook.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's make sure our dragons aren't lazy or bad, right? Let's not judge our dragons. We all got dragons inside. Let's line up our dragons to what we want to create. Let's send our intentions for energized, healthy, powerful dragons within us and stir that in. Let's take a final sip of tea, or at least a deep breath. And here's to powerful dragons with loving, kind hearts. Thanks everybody for joining us. Cheers to you.
Thanks again, everyone. Bye, y'all. We will post this on our YouTube channel soon. So if you'd like to go back and review any of it, you're welcome to. Thank you so much for coming today, and we'll see you in the next class. Bye, all.